Jason's heart thudded as he looked across the cafeteria, noticing a girl in a corner, her head down, her desk empty. Her name was Katie, and she was always quiet, blending into the background of their bustling elementary school. Today, however, was different. Today, Katie looked smaller, more vulnerable, as their teacher's voice cut sharply across the room, reminding her, "Katie, you haven't paid your lunch fees again. You'll need to skip lunch today." Jason saw the girl's face redden, her lips pressed together as she nodded and looked away, her shoulders slumping. As Jason returned his gaze to his own lunch, he felt a pang of guilt that wouldn't go away. He was the kind of kid who usually kept to himself, hiding in the shadows, and he knew what it felt like to be overlooked. But this was something else. He couldn't stand seeing Katie sit alone, hungry, pretending she was okay. That evening, when he went home, he shared what he had seen with his mom. She listened with quiet understanding, and after a moment of silence, she suggested, "How about we pack an extra lunch tomorrow? Maybe for Katie?" The next day, Jason approached Katie during recess. He waited until the teacher left the room, and then, with a shaky voice, offered her a napkin-wrapped sandwich his mom had made. Katie looked up, her eyes wide and uncertain, then slowly reached out. "Thank you, Jason," she whispered, holding the sandwich like it was a precious gift. From that day forward, Jason's mom made it her habit to pack 2 lunches, one for Jason and one for Katie. As the days turned into weeks, their friendship grew, both of them finding solace in each other's quiet companionship. On the walk home one afternoon, Katie began opening up, sharing bits and pieces of her family life. She spoke of her dad's struggle with a gambling addiction and her mom's tireless efforts to keep their household running. Jason listened, feeling an ache in his heart, knowing he couldn't do much but offer her a safe space. Over time, they grew inseparable, walking to school together, sharing stories, and finding comfort in their shared understanding of life's struggles. But just as they'd become close friends, Katie stopped coming to school. No one seemed to know why. Days passed, and eventually, their teacher announced that Katie's family had moved away, leaving Jason feeling hollow. She'd left him a note in his desk, a simple message of gratitude that Jason kept, reading it over whenever he missed her. Life continued, and though Jason found other friends, he never forgot Katie. She remained a ghost of a memory, her absence shaping his values as he grew. He learned kindness wasn't about reciprocation but about giving without expectation. This lesson stayed with him, influencing how he treated others. From sharing snacks with new classmates to standing up for the bullied, Jason was no longer the shy, overlooked kid he once was. When Jason's family moved a few years later, he wondered if he'd ever run into Katie again. He hoped she'd found stability and happiness. Years passed, and memories of Katie faded into a quiet place in his heart, just an image of a little girl clutching a sandwich with gratitude and a note left behind, assuring him she'd never forget him. Jason grew up, went to college, and eventually secured a job at a prestigious tech company. By the time he was 28, he was an executive managing high-profile projects and making difficult decisions. His reputation for integrity made him a respected figure, admired for his steady kindness and quiet strength. Jason worked long hours, pouring himself into the company, but he never felt truly fulfilled. One day, his company announced a high-stakes project, a partnership that could expand their reach worldwide. Jason was tasked with leading it, but he soon faced fierce competition. A ruthless competitor eager to snatch the deal, employed every tactic to undermine him. Jason's work life grew stressful, his motivation waning, yet he continued pressing forward, leaning on the resilience he had cultivated since childhood. Katie had been Jason's first friend, and he never found someone who understood him in quite the same way. He often wondered what became of her, but he had no way of finding out. They had been children, bonded by innocence and need, and when she left, she'd taken a piece of him with her. Sometimes, Jason thought of her note, rereading its words in his mind as if to keep her memory close. The pressures of his job grew, but Jason's thoughts returned to that memory as he dealt with setbacks in the project. As if by fate, he began to hear echoes of her voice in the quiet moments, reminding him of the strength they had both found in each other. Katie had shown him that kindness mattered, even in a world that often seemed indifferent. The company's upcoming project was bigger than anything Jason had handled before. Stakes were high, and failure could cost him his career. The weight of it bore down on him, yet he continued, buoyed by the values he had held dear since childhood. But his team's morale was low, and they faced constant setbacks. Even Jason's optimism began to waver as he saw everything he had worked for slipping away. One evening, just as he was about to leave the office, Jason's boss pulled him aside, expressing concerns about the project. Despite the setbacks, Jason reassured his boss that he would do everything he could to see it succeed. But after that conversation, Jason wondered if he was in over his head, his mind drifting to the days when life's problems were simpler, when helping someone simply meant sharing a lunch. Jason decided to take a break and clear his mind. He went to a nearby coffee shop, hoping to escape the weight of his responsibilities. He ordered his coffee and turned to find a seat. That's when he saw her. A woman with familiar eyes was standing just a few feet away, her face lighting up as she recognized him. It was Katie. At first, he thought he was imagining things, but as they exchanged hesitant smiles, it became clear. She was real, and she was there. Katie explained she was in town for business, now a successful investor. They talked for hours, reminiscing about their childhood and filling in the years they'd missed. Jason felt the comfort of an old friendship, and for the first time in a long while, he felt understood. Katie revealed that after leaving Jason's school, her family had struggled even more before finding stability. She shared stories of her hardships, how she'd fought to build a better life. Despite everything, she had held on to the kindness Jason showed her as a child, and it inspired her to stay resilient. Jason was moved, realizing his small act of kindness had impacted her life in a way he'd never expected. They spent hours talking, lost in memories and laughter. Jason shared his own struggles with the project, confessing his fears about failing. Katie listened, her gaze thoughtful. Then, in a moment that felt as natural as breathing, she asked, "What if I help you?" Jason looked at her, stunned. Katie's offer was tempting, but Jason was hesitant. His team had invested months of work, and they barely knew her. Yet, seeing her confidence and remembering the quiet strength she'd shown as a child, he felt something shift. He realized he could trust her, that perhaps this was exactly what they both needed, a chance to create something meaningful together. Finally, he nodded, accepting her help. They agreed to partner up, with Katie offering resources and strategic insights. Jason felt a renewed sense of purpose, hopeful for the first time in months. Katie brought in her resources, impressing Jason's team with her insights and strategies. Skeptical at first, the team soon warmed up to her ideas, amazed by her expertise. She shared her story of resilience with the team, inspiring them to work harder, just as she had inspired Jason years ago. Little by little, morale improved, and they began making progress. With each passing day, Jason felt their partnership strengthening. He admired Katie's approach to business and her dedication to staying true to her values. Together, they were turning the project around, and Jason started to believe that maybe, just maybe, they could pull it off. As news of their collaboration spread, their competitor grew desperate. False rumors began circulating, claiming Jason's company was failing. Jason's team grew anxious, questioning if they'd ever succeed. Katie stood firm, reminding Jason and his team that integrity was their best response. "If you lose faith in yourself, so will everyone else," she told him, her voice steady. Encouraged by her words, Jason rallied his team, pushing forward with renewed vigor. They doubled down, proving to the world and themselves that resilience and kindness could triumph over ruthlessness. Just when things seemed to be looking up, their competitor leaked confidential information about their project. Jason was devastated, fearing it would ruin their chances. But Katie reminded him of the strength he had shown her years ago. "Believe in the power of kindness," she told him, her eyes fierce. Sometimes people need to see others believe in kindness to believe in it themselves. Despite the setback, they continued working, relying on their values to see them through. Little by little, the pieces started to fall into place, and hope returned. Katie and Jason pushed forward, determined to prove their vision could work. They spent late nights planning, each moment reminding Jason why he had started this journey. In Katie's presence, he found a sense of belonging he had been missing, and together they grew stronger. Their partnership wasn't just about business anymore, it was about trust, resilience, and the belief that kindness could shape the world. Jason sacrificed sleep, personal time, and even his health, knowing what this project meant to him. Katie supported him every step of the way, keeping him grounded and reminding him of their purpose. The work was exhausting, but they pressed on, driven by their shared vision. The weeks turned into months, and finally, the project reached its final phase. They could see the finish line, and with it, the realization that their journey together had been worth every sacrifice. The day of the final presentation arrived, and the air was thick with tension. Jason stood in front of the board, his palms slightly damp but his voice steady. Katie was by his side, her presence a comforting reminder of the journey they'd shared. As he spoke, he could feel the attention of every person in the room on him, waiting to see if this ambitious project could live up to its promise. His words were clear, his vision resolute. Katie's support filled him with renewed confidence, and for the first time, he felt the complete weight of what they'd achieved. When the presentation ended, there was a pause. And then, as if by unspoken agreement, applause erupted around the room. Jason felt a swell of pride, not only for the success but for the integrity they had preserved along the way. They had done it, and they had done it their way. Despite Jason's initial doubts, the project received overwhelming support. The board praised the depth of their work, marveling at the authenticity of their approach. Even the most skeptical board members were impressed. For the first time in a long while, Jason felt at peace, knowing that he hadn't compromised his values to achieve success. It was a win built on principles that mattered to him. Katie looked over, her face breaking into a proud smile, and Jason couldn't help but laugh, a moment of shared triumph that reminded him of their journey from childhood friends to partners in this venture. The project was officially approved, and Jason felt the weight of it sink in. They had overcome every obstacle, each challenge bringing them closer to this moment of victory. That evening, as the celebratory buzz began to fade, Jason found himself deep in thought. His mind drifted back to those quiet days in the school cafeteria, sharing lunches and stories with Katie. His small act of kindness had planted a seed that had come full circle in ways he could never have imagined. He realized that the strength they'd shown throughout the project came not just from their business acumen but from the bond of trust and shared values they'd built. Jason looked at Katie with gratitude, realizing how much she'd brought back into his life. She'd rekindled his belief in kindness, showing him that even the smallest acts could lead to powerful transformations. He knew now that kindness wasn't just a childhood ideal, it was a lifelong strength. As they sat together, basking in the quiet victory, Katie turned to him with a question that felt almost surreal. "Would you still have helped me all those years ago if you'd known it would take 15 years for us to meet again?" Jason considered her question, surprised by the simple truth that filled his heart. "Yes," he replied softly. "Because helping you had nothing to do with expecting something in return. It was just the right thing to do." Katie smiled, and Jason felt a deep sense of satisfaction in his answer. They both knew that kindness didn't require a timeline or a guaranteed outcome. It was a choice, one that Jason had made all those years ago without knowing it would change his life forever. The question reminded him that real friendship, like real kindness, could endure across years, waiting quietly to rekindle. With the project a success, Jason felt the winds of change sweep through his company. Inspired by his journey, his team rallied around him, and the company began to embrace a culture of integrity and compassion. Katie agreed to stay on as a consultant, bringing fresh ideas and a new approach to business relationships. Together, they started shaping the company's future, each decision guided by the values they'd held to through every challenge. Jason found himself more energized than ever, ready to take on new challenges and help others believe in the impact of kindness. With Katie's support, he saw endless potential for his company and for their partnership. As they walked forward together, they both knew their journey had only just begun. As weeks passed, Jason implemented new initiatives that promoted teamwork and respect throughout the company. Inspired by Katie's resilience and determination, he led with empathy, teaching his team to value authenticity over ruthless competition. His team followed his lead, embracing a collaborative spirit that began to transform the company culture. Katie's contributions sparked a renewed energy, one that was driven by a shared sense of purpose. They worked tirelessly, with Jason realizing that his initial anxieties about the project had been eclipsed by something far greater. Together, he and Katie were laying the foundation for a company built on principles of kindness, a place where every employee felt valued and respected. It was more than just business, it was a legacy. One afternoon, as they were closing out a meeting, Jason looked at Katie and felt a deep sense of gratitude. Their partnership had grown into something unbreakable, a bond that had been forged in the fires of hardship and trust. They had begun as children, united by a shared need for kindness, and now, as adults, they were bound by a mutual respect that only deepened with time. Jason realized that meeting Katie again had been more than a coincidence. It was a reminder of the values he had always held dear. Together, they had built something meaningful, a partnership that extended beyond business, one that was rooted in friendship, integrity, and resilience. As Jason walked through the quiet office one evening, he took a moment to reflect on the path his life had taken. The company was thriving, its culture transformed, and his team more motivated than ever. He thought about all that had led to this point, a simple act of kindness, a friendship that had reappeared when he least expected it, and the strength he and Katie had found in each other. Katie joined him, coffee cups in hand, and they looked out over the city, watching the lights flicker against the night sky. "Funny, isn't it?" she murmured. "How life circles back to what truly matters." Jason nodded, feeling the weight of her words. Their story was proof that some things endure, that the values they had held as children had somehow shaped everything they'd accomplished. And in that quiet moment, Jason knew that he and Katie had created something timeless. With the project complete and the company flourishing, Jason and Katie turned their focus toward a new venture, creating opportunities for those who, like Katie once had, faced challenges beyond their control. Together, they launched a mentorship program for young professionals from disadvantaged backgrounds, teaching them not only business skills but the values of resilience, kindness, and integrity. The program quickly gained popularity, and soon, they were hosting workshops, connecting with community leaders, and offering career guidance to those who needed it most. Each new class of participants reminded Jason of Katie, of the journey that had brought them here, and of the potential each person held within them. Through their work, they hoped to inspire a new generation to believe in kindness and the strength it could bring. One evening, Katie shared a story from her childhood with Jason. "When I was a kid, I used to wonder if anyone would ever help me," she confessed quietly. "And then you did. But it's strange, I never really knew why, only that it mattered." Jason nodded, understanding her unspoken gratitude. "I didn't need a reason," he replied. "Helping you was just what felt right." Katie's eyes shone with a mix of gratitude and pride. In a way, their mentorship program was her way of returning the favor. She had once been that struggling child, and now she had the chance to be the one offering a hand to others. The cycle of kindness, Jason realized, was something that neither of them could break, and he wouldn't want to. The mentorship program drew media attention, and soon, journalists began reaching out, eager to hear about the company's unusual success story. Jason and Katie gave interviews, sharing the importance of compassion in business and how their paths had crossed. Though Jason found the attention overwhelming at times, he felt a deep satisfaction in sharing their journey, especially knowing that their story might inspire others. One evening after an interview, a journalist remarked on the rarity of their approach in a world where corporate cutthroat tactics dominated. Jason's response was simple: "It's easy to chase profits, but building a legacy requires something more." Katie nodded in agreement, knowing their work together was something bigger than either of them had anticipated. Soon, their company began receiving recognition for its commitment to ethical practices, awards and accolades pouring in from industry leaders. Jason was honored but remained humble, recognizing that the true reward was the transformation within his team. With every success, he felt the legacy he and Katie had built growing, their values resonating with each person who joined the company. Yet despite the attention, Jason's focus never wavered from the principles that had guided him from the start. He knew that at the heart of every accomplishment was the quiet strength he had found years ago when he'd chosen to help Katie. It wasn't the awards or the recognition that mattered most, it was the impact they had on the lives around them. As their mentorship program expanded, they encountered new challenges. Some within the company questioned the practicality of such an initiative, suggesting it was distracting from core business operations. Jason faced pressure from stakeholders, some of whom were more concerned with profits than principles. The criticisms weighed on him, testing his resolve. Katie reminded him of the long journey they'd already taken together, and of the strength they had built over time. "We've already proven what kindness can achieve," she told him, her words steady. Reaffirmed, Jason stood by his convictions, refusing to compromise the values they had instilled. With Katie by his side, he was prepared to face any opposition. Their mentorship program continued to thrive, and over time, many graduates joined the company, infusing it with fresh perspectives and energy. Jason saw in these new employees the same hunger for opportunity and resilience that he had witnessed in Katie so many years ago. The company evolved, with each new hire adding to the legacy he and Katie had envisioned. One of their earliest men's approached Jason during a company event. "I just want to thank you," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "Your mentorship changed my life. You showed me that kindness and success aren't mutually exclusive." Jason felt a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing that he had played a part in her journey, just as Katie had in his. On the anniversary of their company's founding, Katie presented Jason with a framed photo from their elementary school days. It was a picture of him at his desk, smiling as he handed her a napkin-wrapped sandwich. Jason felt a rush of nostalgia, memories flooding back to that simple act of kindness that had started it all. "I kept this picture," Katie said softly, "to remind me of where I came from and of who showed me kindness when I needed it most." Jason looked at her, his heart full. He realized that the years, challenges, and successes had all led back to this, a friendship that had come full circle, changing both their lives in ways they could never have imagined. With the company and mentorship program both thriving, Jason and Katie started thinking about the future. They decided to expand their outreach, partnering with other organizations to bring their values to a wider audience. Their story had touched many lives, and together, they wanted to spread the message even further, showing others that kindness could be a foundation for change. In a boardroom full of executives, Jason presented their new vision, outlining the expansion plans with passion and conviction. Katie sat by his side, the embodiment of the legacy they built together. As he finished, he looked around the room, feeling the weight of everything they'd accomplished. Their story wasn't just a partnership, it was a movement. Years passed, and Jason and Katie continued their work, their company a shining example of what integrity and kindness could accomplish. They watched their employees, their men's, and even their competitors embrace values they had once believed were rare in business. Their legacy grew beyond their company, becoming a testament to the power of friendship, resilience, and the unwavering belief in doing good. One day, as Jason looked out over the city from his office, he thought back to that cafeteria in elementary school, to the small act of kindness that had changed his life. Katie joined him, her smile warm and familiar. In that quiet moment, they both knew they had built something that would outlast them. They had turned kindness into a legacy, one that would live on in the lives they had touched. And with that, their story continued, a reminder that sometimes, the smallest acts have the greatest impact, an impact that stretches far beyond what anyone could ever imagine.